please join us in welcoming Hannah Shaw, the Kitten Lady.
People standing. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I am just so happy to be back home in San Diego. I have been all over the country this week on my book tour. You guys, I put out a book. It's really been an exciting week, and I think the best thing for me this week has been being in rooms packed with compassionate people. It's just made me cry almost every single night, so there might be some tears tonight, and that's good. Crying is healthy and normal. I'm just so grateful to have such an incredible movement to be a part of. When I got started in animal rescue, I felt so very alone. When I found my first kitten outside, I thought that I was the only person who cared about this. I didn't know who to turn to. I couldn't find other people who cared. And I felt totally lost. And this week, being in rooms packed with people like you guys, I certainly don't feel alone anymore. So thank you guys for being here. It really does. It feels like a community, and it's not just an online community. It's we're all here in real life. I would say dogs have the dog park and cats have the internet. But cats have real life too. I mean, look at this, like wall to wall. People who care about this issue is amazing. This is a movement, and it is an amazing movement to be a part of. I would love to know who is in the room tonight. Can you raise your hand if you've ever fostered a kitten before? Yes, my people. How many of you have ever trapped a cat for TNR? Yes, awesome. Okay, how many of you have a cat at home? Okay, how many of you have 2 cats at home? Okay, great, 3 cats. All right, 4 cats. 5 cats. 6. Okay, that's awesome. I won't go any more than that. I don't want to embarrass you. Anybody have no cats? Oh my gosh, we gotta get you a cat! We got cats right here. You came to the right place. We have my friends, East County Animal Rescue, who are awesome. They're here, and we have San Diego Humane Society here. San Diego, I mean, we moved here because, first of all, there's great need, but there's also great community. Like, there's so many people who are doing this work here, but there's not enough. There's always more need, so it's really cool to have you guys here. I hope that you'll, enjoy this part of it, but also talk to the groups that are here. All right, so my last question for you guys, I guess, is how many of you aspire to do more for animals someday? All right, if you didn't raise your hand, I don't know that you're going to enjoy this evening very much, because that's what we're talking about, but maybe you just got lost. So I called my book Tiny But Mighty because, little kittens like Hank, the cover kitty here, when you look at them, I mean, they're so small and they're so fragile, and you look at them and they really are tiny, but they are packed with so much potential, endless potential to become a mighty cat. We just have to bring that out of them and, make that potential into reality. But the other reason that I called my book Tiny But Mighty is because of all of us. Because it's a reminder for me that big movements are made up of individual actions and individual people, which is helpful for me to remember because I'm just one person and I feel overwhelmed sometimes. Like, what can one person possibly do? But the truth is, when I do a little and you do a little and you do a little, together we can do a lot, and we are doing it, and it's changing already, and my hope is that this book can propel us forward maybe a little bit faster so that there's more people who get involved, not just the people who are already doing the work, who are doing amazing things. We need more people, and I hope that this book not just inspires people to get involved, but also educates people about how to do it well, because I don't want anybody to feel as alone as I felt when I found my first kitten outside. I want people to feel like, hey, this is an issue that I can see myself being involved in, and I know that someone's got my back because I've got all the tools that I need to be able to do this work. So what you'll find inside the book, did you guys get the book? a chance to open it up yet? It's really, really pretty, right? Got a lot of cute babies in it. I raised them, so maybe I'm biased. Actually, we have some adopters here tonight. I don't want to call them out if they don't want to be called out, but we have Flapjack's parents up here. We see Bella's mom here. Do we have any other adopters? Oh my gosh, yes! And your cat's name's changed, but we have King Oyster and Baby Bella's parents here. Oh my gosh, all of them. It's so cool because it's like they're my babies, but they're your babies too. They're all of our babies. What you're going to find in the book is you'll find a lot of helpful educational information. So there's how-tos, there's step-by-step tutorials, there's charts, there's lots of information in there. There's also narrative in there about what's going on in the United States. Why is this population so vulnerable, and what can each of us do to involve ourselves in that? And then the other thing you'll find is the individual kitten stories. So, the stories of kittens that I've raised and their adventures and their tales of triumph. The reason that I included stories in this book and didn't just include, reference material is because I think that just like movements are made up of individuals, these big, sad statistics that we hear, hundreds of thousands of animals' lives at risk, that's very overwhelming, but those statistics are just made up of individuals too. So when we zoom in on the individual, it feels like, this is an animal who is worthy of the dignity of a chance, of our protection, of our advocacy. And when you zoom in on the individual, you can learn a lot about them. And so each of the individuals whose stories you'll hear in this book, they're kind of meant to teach us a lesson. It's woven into the book, so if you're reading about how to treat fleas, I'm also going to tell you a story about a kitten that I had who had fleas, so that you can see, okay, not only do I know how to do this, but I'm kind of incentivized to care about this, because I can see how this was an issue in this kitten's life and how they, overcame that. And I hope that it helps you feel less alone, because a lot of these stories that I'm telling are like stories of me learning how to do the stuff that I'm then trying to share. So what I want to do now, I'm going to read one of the stories from the book, and I'm going to come over here because I have to have some fun visuals for this. So I'm going to scoot back a little bit so that I can click through. Ooh, this is a chair on wheels. We have a fun little accident up here. Okay, so I'm going to read a story for you guys now. And it's fun to read in front of people because it gives you a little of those 7th grade nerves where you're like, do I know how to read? This is my 6th one of these this week, and it turns out I do know how to read. This should go great. Okay, so this story is in chapter 4 of the book. And chapter 4 is called Fight for the Little Guys. It's all about the tiniest newborn kittens. So these are the little babies who come in, they fit in the palm of your hand, they're so vulnerable. And in chapter 4, I'm talking about working with these very little guys. Right before this story, I've been sharing why it's so important for kittens to have a heat source and the types of heat sources you can provide to them. So many people who first get involved in kittens don't realize they can't thermoregulate for the first couple weeks of life. So, I'm sharing that, and then I'm telling a story about a kitten who came from a situation where he was very cold. So his story is called Cold Kitten, Hot Mess. And this is his story. It was unseasonably cold in Washington, D.C. Spring was coming, but not quickly enough, and after several weeks of warm weather, we had been hit with a sudden cold front that dumped a foot of snow on the ground. It was on this frozen day that a community cat in my neighborhood went into labor prematurely and, seeking shelter, slipped through a local artist's studio door, which had been left ajar. Under the refuge of a large oil painting, she gave birth to 2 underweight kittens, and then exited the building, never to return. By the time I received a call about the 2 kittens, they were 4 hours old and nearly dead. I rushed down the street with a heating pad and a rescue kit, and entered the studio to find the artist in a state of panic. The studio wasn't much warmer than the street, and the 2 newborns were frozen stiff like little popsicles. Still wet from birth, they were covered in a chilled, bloody residue. They made no sound or movement, other than shallow breaths from the small tuxedo kitten. The little black kitten appeared to have no life in her body. As I reached for the kittens, the artist asked, "Are you sure it's okay to touch them?" I wasn't sure, so we didn't. Yes, you have to touch them in order to help them, I said, lifting their lifeless bodies to my mouth, breathing hot air into their damp fur. Externally, I was composed, but internally, my heart was flooded with sadness, knowing that they'd been left there to freeze without any assistance or warmth. Situations like these are why it feels so important to me to educate people about kitten welfare. People just don't know what to do. I placed them side by side on a heating pad. They were in a very bad state. Clearly born prematurely, left with no heat source for hours, never having had a lick of food from their mother. Using a cloth, I got to work cleaning the afterbirth from their fur and clearing the residue from their airways. I brushed their bodies vigorously with a soft bristle toothbrush, just trying to get their blood flowing. After a few minutes, the little black one began to breathe. The artist gasped. The kitten was still alive after all, but barely. A cold kitten is a dead kitten. Neonates cannot survive without a heat source. Once it was clear that the kittens were still clinging to life, I brought them back to the nursery, naming the little black kitten Mink and the little tuxedo Badger. They were underdeveloped and so tiny, it doesn't get tinier than a preemie. Despite everything that we tried for Mink, she sadly passed on her second day, leaving baby Badger all alone to fight for his life. Badger spent the first 3 weeks of his life alone in an incubator, nesting like a little baby bird who wasn't yet ready to hatch. My heart broke for him as he wiggled around, navigating the world with closed eyes and no mother or sister to cling to. He did have a stuffed puppy and a stuffed moose, which he'd rest his little white chin on during his long naps in between feedings. Every few hours, I'd lift his tiny body, weigh him, feed him, help him go to the bathroom, clean him up, and give him approximately 1 million kisses before placing him back in his warm isolation unit. So as a preemie, Badger's body developed roughly 7 days behind schedule throughout the duration of his upbringing. His umbilical cord clung on until he was 12 days old. His eyes opened at 16 days old, and his motor skills were delayed. It felt like he would be a little guy forever. As his body grew, it became clear that the cards were stacked against him. He had a belly full of parasites, skin that flaked off in chunks, and a congenital defect called megaesophagus that caused him to regurgitate his food. He was constantly gassy, and his bloated belly gave him a pudgy pear-shaped look. It's quite impressive. With all of his woes, I jokingly referred to his condition as neonatal hot mess syndrome. He was a mess, but he was my favorite mess, and in all of our time together, he had become my little sidekick. Some would lose hope for a kitten with so many troubles, but I'm not one to give up on a baby who so clearly wants to live. For as many troubles as he had, Badger would gulp down meals like a competitive eater, seek human interaction, and melt in your hands if you gave him a gentle scalp massage. This was a kitten who desired to someday be a cat, but getting him there would be such a delicate process. Badger's treatment involved antibiotics, deworming medications, and daily butt baths to deal with his poop explosions. I think I might be the first person to put that word in a book. As he weaned onto solid foods, he had to use a special feeding station to help him eat at an upright angle and prevent regurgitation. It was a bumpy road, but over time, he started to get the hang of life and even started thriving.
Hey, what are you doing? You feeling good today? You look like you're feeling great today. You're like a new cat all of a sudden. What happened? What? Are you becoming a cat? Are you freaking kidding?
As Badger's health improved, I decided to introduce him to a litter of 5 kittens I was also fostering at the time. These kittens had been raised by a mother cat and were thus robust, social, and normal kittens. So here I was, feeling like the mother of a homeschooled, dorky, stinky little boy with no social skills, bringing him to his first day at the prep school with the privileged little milk feds. I kissed him on his head, placed him in the room with the others, and held my breath, just thinking, please, please, please accept my awkward son. Well, it took a few days, but he slowly started to fit in. Next thing I knew, he was figuring out how to cuddle. After that, he was learning how to play. He took a liking to Leanie, a swirly tortie who looked like a beautiful little peanut butter brownie. And over time, Leanie took a liking to him too. My heart exploded with joy. It was like watching an 80s rom-com unfolding before my eyes. The nerdy outcast was winning over the cool girl, and it was the best. As time passed and their friendship flourished, his health conditions seemed to wither away. Suddenly, he was no longer a weird little pear. He was a handsome, normal-ish boy with a best friend. Badger and Leanie found an adoptive home together, and as I placed them in their carrier to say goodbye, I kissed him one last time, and tears filled my eyes. I remembered Badger and his sweet sister, Mink, huddled together so cold on their first day of life, and how impossible it felt that either of them would survive. I wept for his sister and for all that Badger endured in order to become the beautiful young cat who sat before me. I'm so proud of him, I said, and zipped him up with a lump in my throat. Badger comfortably curled up next to his new sister, Leanie, and he looked at me through the mesh with big, soft, loving eyes. He now had a best friend and a loving home, and from that day forward, he would always be warm. It's like I don't know how it ends or something. Like, I rescued the freaking cat. I should know how it ends. Oh my gosh, my eye makeup. Okay. Badger's story was very special to me. I know his story was very special to a lot of people. And the truth is, his story was special, but unfortunately it's not unique. There are a lot of kittens just like him who are waiting for the warmth of a loving hand of a foster home, who can give them what they need to be able to make it to adoption age, and that's really what this is all about. I hope that my book, Tiny But Mighty, will give people the tools to see themselves doing this and to be able to do it really well. So please, make this a community. This is a community. Talk to other people who are here. When you're out there, we have other groups that you can talk to. Involve yourself. There's a lot going on here, which means it's a great community to be a part of, but there's an endless need for help. So please do involve yourself and get active for the kittens here. Now, because we're in San Diego, this is the only one of my book events where I actually have my nonprofit here. This is my nonprofit, Orphan Kitten Club. I just want to quickly mention we are here in San Diego. So if you're following me online, please, we need more people to find out about us, adopt from us. We have kittens who need homes all the time. So if you're one of those few people who raise their hand that they don't have a cat, we got cats for you. Orphan Kitten Club is a 501c3. We have a number of different kinds of programs. In addition to the work we do saving the lives of little kittens here in San Diego, we also have grant programs where we support other organizations. And the thing that I'm really proud of is that we actually have a program called the Full Circle Program. It's a really unique program where every kitten that we take in, if we know where that kitten is from, we go out and we sterilize the entire colony where those kittens are born, so that the kittens we take in, we can make a promise to them they are the last kitten who will ever have to be born in the bushes in San Diego from their colony, and I'm really, really proud of that. anybody who is wearing an Orphan Kitten Club shirt tonight, it says team member on the back of it. Give them a hug or a high five or some kind of thank you, because they are really doing amazing work for us. Like I said, this is a community and a movement, and we all have to play our part. I realized at a certain point I can't do absolutely everything, and my ability to just take in the kittens, do that work, and be able to send out an email that says, hey, this is where Sage is from. This is where Flower's from. Can I get somebody to go there and help make sure that we don't get more Sages and more Flowers soon? And our team is doing that, and they're doing it really well. I'm so proud of our volunteers. And this morning, I got to go out and we had, does anybody know who the herb babies are that we just had? Flower, and Sage, and Basil. Our trap team went out and sterilized 10 cats from the colony they came from. And this morning, we got to go return them. And it was so fun. So please, if you see people wearing a shirt that looks like the logo, give them a high five, because they are awesome people. So, and also we have a table out there. So if you want an Orphan Kitten Club sticker, we have free stickers for you guys to put on your car. They say, I love Orphan Kitten Club, which I hope you do. And you'll help us spread the word that we're here and we need adopters and supporters, and we just want people to know that we're so happy to be part of this community here. So we're going to switch gears. Speaking of this community, I have a friend here who is going to come up and join me, and we are going to talk all about the book and about kitten rescue and TNR and everything else. So my friend Chris the cat guy is here. Come on up, Chris. This is Chris. Test that one and see how it sounds.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So Chris is a good friend of mine. He's a personal friend and colleague. We do a lot of stuff together. Chris is he is a TNR advocate. He is the kitten nursery manager for Pasadena Humane Society, and he is one of my kitten dealers. So he brings me the babies, and I appreciate that. But Chris is a great voice online, and of course, with all of the work that you're doing in Southern California, and really happy to have you here with me. He's gonna grill me and ask me some questions. We're gonna have a little discussion, and then we will have opportunity for you guys to ask questions. So if you wanna ask a question at the end, we'll have opportunity for that as well. So what's up, Chris? How's it going?
Thank you for having me. I love something.
Self-care is important.
That's a great segue into the book.
Yeah.
So let's start from the beginning. You have a book, everyone knows it, and what inspired this?
I have wanted to write this book for as long as I can remember. I have so much to share, and brevity is not my strong suit. I have a lot to say, and in the short format of social media, it's really challenging for me. Like, for instance, today I made a post where I used every single character that Instagram gives you, and I have to go back and find synonyms for words so that I can shorten it so that I can say everything I want to say. Social media is really hard to say everything that you want to say, and then even in an 8-minute YouTube video or in a 4-hour lecture, I talk all over the country, but I can only say so much in a couple of hours. So I knew that a book was necessary to be able to really fully place in context why this matters and how to do this. And of course, lots of cute photos. There needed to be room for that too. So yeah, it's a dream that I've had for a long time, but it only became a reality because somebody from the literary world reached out to me and said, have you ever thought about doing a book? And I was like, oh, yes. Do you know how to make that happen? Because I don't know. You don't know how to do a book until you do a book. And now I know all about it, and I think every interesting person should write a book. Because it's really fun, and it's a really cool process, and it's been I just couldn't wait for this to come out. I've been talking about it so long. I was like, I promise it really is gonna happen. It is gonna come out. So now it's here, and I'm so happy. Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of us. I'm so glad that happened, that someone reached out to you, because I've read it. You know, in the beginning we're using words like community and movement, and this is truly a playbook for people to learn the fundamentals on how to just jump in and do it. And they can now be well supported by other people that read the book, by the tools that are in there. This really rallies the troops. I mean, from anybody who is just wanting to get in, I've been in the rescue game for about 5 years now, and this is gold. There's so much useful information.
Thank you. Yeah, I want it to be something that wherever you are on your journey, you can find something in here. So, you know, if you are just like a cat lover who's like, you wear a lot of cat clothing, who's wearing cat clothing tonight? Anybody? Yeah, that's what it is. I am too, but I won't tell you what it is. TMI, sorry mom. My mom's here. But I mean, if you're just like a cat lover who is interested in learning more about vulnerable cats, then this is a book for you. Or if you've been doing rescue for 30 years and you just want like reference material for, you know, I've got like lots of stuff in there that I'm already using as reference material, because it's not all like memorized in my head and I can pull out the chart and right there it is. So I want it to be something that's fun for everybody and is useful for everybody, no matter where on your journey you are.
Well, I love it. This is long overdue, and feline advocacy, and I'm so excited that it's out. There's a lot of stories in this book, a lot of them that you clearly put a lot of emotion into in writing. Do any of them stand out? Are there one or two that if you want this room or these people in here to take one takeaway, is there something off the top of your head?
Every single baby is the most important baby I've ever raised, so it's really hard to pick just one story. It was hard for me to pick a story to read. I chose Badger because he has really cute photos and videos that I could share. You know, honestly, the last story in the book is Chloe's story, and don't skip ahead and read it. You gotta read the book in order. But that last story is a doozy. She changed my life more than any cat has ever changed my life, other than Coco, who is the first story in the book. So actually, it's perfect bookends. Coco is the kitten who I found, 10 years ago, and I didn't know anything. And her story is the first, it's in the introduction. But Chloe's story, oh my gosh, this is a kitten that I raised who's paralyzed, and I didn't know anything about this. And it was honestly, it made it feel brand new for me again, because in the same way that I had to learn, is this cutting in and out? Huh? I can also project, so it's fine. I think it was me. Oops. When I started working with neonatal kittens, it was like, can you really save them like that? And now when I see people with that attitude, I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, they're fine. Yeah, come over here, I'll give them a bottle. I had to learn that with special needs kittens too, because I didn't know, can you save a kitten who's paralyzed? And I was so emotional and upset about this kitten, and I thought I had to fix her. And then, her lesson for me was that she didn't need to be fixed. I needed to be fixed in the head, because I didn't know that she was perfect how she is already. And her story transformed everything that I do with kittens now, because I see them exactly for who they are, not like my expectations of what you're supposed to be, but like, who are you really as an individual, and what does a good life look like for you, I loved that little cat, I still do. And so her story is the last story in the book, and that's you can read that once you get there. But her lesson really for me was that every single one of these babies is worthy of our protection, and that we have to meet all of them exactly where they are. Yeah.
A lot of the information in the book that I read talks about dignity for cats, community cats on the street, cats that need to be TNR'd in different shelters. What was it like collecting data nationally around what our shelter system looks like and how cats might be treated differently or with a different amount of dignity, from a fluffy 8-week-old to a unsocialized 5-year-old?
Sure, yeah. It's challenging. Data is one of the most difficult things, I think, in animal welfare, and I'm sure you know and relate to this. We actually talk about this a lot, where we're like, where is the data? The truth is, in the United States, there's no like national requirement for shelters to keep data, so it's really hard. I'm interviewed all the time, like, how many kittens are dying in shelters? And I am honest with everyone. I say, I don't know. A lot, like a lot, too many. And we know, I used to say they're probably the most vulnerable. I now I say they are the most vulnerable, definitely, feline population in animal shelters. And anyone who works in a shelter or has stood in the lobby of a shelter for 10 minutes knows these are the felines that are coming in largest numbers this time of year. In Southern California, it's kind of all year. And they have the most uncertain outcomes. So it's difficult, like looking for that data is difficult. What I do in chapter 1 of the book is I kind of explain the state of the kitten in the US, and I talk about the lack of data, and then I talk about the data that there is. What we do know is that the #1 feline population on intake in animal shelters in the US is kittens from outside. And so to me, that tells us everything we need to know about where our priorities should be, which is we have to be sterilizing cats outside. And I think you can't separate these two issues. So before you learn anything about how to take care of a kitten in my book, chapter 1 is what's going on in shelters. Chapter 2 is prevention, trap, neuter, return. You have to care about sterilizing these cats outside if you want to care about the kittens who are in our shelter system. So I think the fate of community cats and these orphan neonatal kittens is completely intertwined. We have to work on both of these issues simultaneously. We have to care about both of these issues simultaneously, because you cannot foster your way out of the kitten crisis. You can't do it. Like, we have to have fewer kittens coming into shelters. That's why we do our Full Circle program, and that's why I know you're such a huge advocate for. You work in a kitten program, and then I see you on your time off trapping in the streets, which is pretty phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about. It's really two sides of the same coin. So I hope that for people who maybe care about kittens but don't know anything about trap, neuter, return, they'll find, oh, this is surprising. This book about kittens, chapter 2, is completely about community cats, but I go into great detail in it about who are these cats who live outside, and like what do they need, and how that impacts everything. What we see is that in communities that have more sterilization programs for cats outdoors, there's fewer kittens coming into the shelters. So certainly that gives us something to aspire to.
I think a lot of people in rescue end up burning 3 different candles, all at different ends, for 2 months out of the year. Which, going back to words like community and movement, this book is so fantastic that I'm just as sure as everyone is sitting here, you're going to be able to motivate or at least highlight different areas where people can get involved. I think you've done a great job in talking about that kittens are not just falling out of the sky, or the story's not bringing them. These are all connected and require multi-pronged approaches. So I think that as this movement develops a little bit more, we'll have more people doing TNR, we'll have more people doing foster, and seasoned rescuers like yourself won't need to do everything. And so it's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that a big message of the book is that every person's journey doesn't have to look the same. There's a lot of different ways to help cats, and that means that we need every single person to find their contribution. And that could be just transporting cats. We have somebody who just transports cats from you to me.
Yeah.
That's an amazing contribution to make. You could just contribute by being the person who volunteers at the spay-neuter clinic, ear tipping cats every Sunday. That's a thing that you can do. There's so many different ways to help, and the more that people start to get creative about how you can help, instead of saying, oh, well, I can't do what you do, so I can't do anything. No, everybody can do something. Everybody in this room has some skill or ability that they possess that they can use to help cats and to help this movement. There's a section in the back of the book called Find Your Feline Superpower, and it's all about that. It's like, I don't want to hear, oh, I can't. Maybe you can't do everything. I can't do everything. But you can totally do something. So what can you do? Maybe you, are really crafty and you can create crafts that are useful for cats, like, little cat beds or toys. Maybe you are a graphic designer and you can design the educational pamphlets that the local organizations use at their events. Like, there's so many ways to help and no shortage of need. So I hope that people will enjoy the book, even if you don't see yourself fostering. You just educating yourself about these issues and this need will help you find your place in the movement.
Speaking of crafts, I've always wanted to ask you, what is with the hats?
Well, I love making hats for my little babies or other fun things for them. First of all, don't ever put a hat on a kitten if they don't want to wear the hat. And if you do put it on them, just snap a quick picture and take it off. But I actually put a section in the book about how to make a paper hat for a kitten, a step by step. And the reason that I put it in there actually is that chapter 8 of my book is all about personal development as a rescuer. It's about the skills that maybe don't look like what you would expect to need to know when you're a rescuer. Everybody would think, okay, I'm gonna learn how to bottle feed, I'm gonna learn how to, give medication, but did you learn also how to take care of yourself? Do you learn about how to go through grief? These are things that we experience as rescuers. So in that section of the book, I'm talking about grief and loss and fatigue and all of these things that we experience, and then I immediately after that talk about levity and the importance of actively planning on being joyful while you're doing this, because if you don't have that balance, it could be a really difficult thing. So I have a whole list of ways that you can bring joy into your life while doing this, and one of them is just making silly little hats for your kittens. You don't have to make silly hats for your kittens or make songs for them. That's just what I do. But find the thing that brings you real happiness and joy in doing this work. Because I think, for so long in animal welfare, we just had the Sarah McLachlan song, and everybody's crying, and it's oh my gosh, what a bum out. That looks like such a bummer, and I want to be the anti-Sarah McLachlan. This is fun, people, we can do this. I want people to feel like they're on a winning team, that, yeah, we go through difficult things, but we do it with a strong heart, and we have as much fun as we can while we're doing this work.
This work is emotionally draining, and sometimes we need to emotionally vomit just everything that we've just gone through. What are some of the tips that you talk about in terms of self-care and taking a break?
Yeah, I think that something that's very undervalued and underrepresented in animal welfare is the importance of self-care. So I talk about that. I have an entire chapter called Taking Care of Yourself so you can take care of them. Because when you're doing this work, pretty much it's so fast how it happens for a lot of people, because you get your foot in the door and then you realize how intense the need is, and it feels like you're on a treadmill you can't get off of for a lot of us. There's never an end to how many lives are calling out to you and how great of a need there is and how difficult some of these things are, and it's important to be honest about that. So the other thing that's important to know when you're going into this is you need more skills than just the hands-on skills of caring for babies. You also need skills like setting boundaries, knowing when to say no, knowing when to ask for help, or when to ask for more training, or just ask for a break. It's important to put your own self-care on the to-do list too, because if you make a list and your list is feed babies, go to vet, it's did you feed yourself? Did you go to the doctor for the thing you're needing to deal with? There are a lot of us who, I think historically, in the past, at least in my past, I knew so many people who almost made a joke out of how much we don't take care of ourselves. Oh, haha, I never take care of myself. And that's supposed to make you a martyr and somehow really honorable. But I think we need to challenge that and say, no, when you went on vacation recently, and I was so proud of you because you worked so hard, and I was you go to that beach. I don't want to see you thinking about a cat for a week. And I was really proud of you. I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. I don't doubt that.
Well, I agree. This is the first year and probably 5 years that we took an actual vacation.
Interesting, you said you've been involved with rescue for 5 years.
Yeah. But this will also be the year that I'm able to impact the most amount of lives, at work and outside of work. If I hadn't gone on vacation, I would be dust right now. I probably wouldn't be sitting here. There's no way that I would have the fuel that I need to get through the next couple months.
Totally. Well, first of all, I'm really proud of you for that. It's honestly awesome. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way by not taking care of myself and realizing, like, I'm not as effective, like a car is not as effective at driving if the gas tank is empty and the rear view mirror is duct taped on. Like, that is not the car that you want driving these little baby animals. So I think of myself like that. And in that way, I think animal rescue is such an awesome invitation to us to take better care of ourselves. Like, if you can't love yourself as much as you should be able to, then can you love yourself because you're the vehicle that's driving these animals to safety, and can you take care of that vehicle because that's, you have amazing capacity to wake up in the morning and save lives and change the world. So, like, let's take care of ourselves. Ideally, I'm new to San Diego. This week I'm celebrating 1 year as a San Diego resident. And I ain't leaving anytime soon because it's the best place in the country. So, I'm here to stay, and I want this community to be the same community in 40 years. I want us all to be sitting here going, hey, thank goodness we all took care of ourselves. Because when you don't take care of yourself, you burn out. You absolutely burn out. And it's important to say that so that people know, whether you are listening to me talk right now and you are already going through this, like maybe it's been an intense year for you and you're a rescuer and you haven't been saying no, like say no, and don't just say no and be like, oh, I did it, wow. Like, say no and be like, I am so proud of myself, I am awesome, like I am saving lives by saying no. I'm saving lives by going to the beach, because sometimes you need to go to the beach, you need to decompress, and then you come back with such a richer ability to, breathe and do the work in a way that's pleasant for you and pleasant for the people you have to be around. I mean, that's the other part of rescue. It's a community. People say, oh, I love animals, but I hate humans. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna work in rescue, because we have to love other humans, who, by the way, are animals. We are all animals. You guys all agree. And we have to be able to work together. Like, what would my life be? My life would not be nearly as good if I wasn't able to, like, work with you and collaborate with you and with everybody who's here who I know. Like, we do better work when we take care of ourselves and when we take care of each other. So I have a lot of, like, tangible tips for all of that in the book on how to be a better rescuer and better, advocate for yourself as well as for your community, and how to find and build strong community. I think there's a lot more skills that go into rescue than just wiping butts, although it is a lot of wiping butts.
A lot of wiping butts and a lot of laundry.
Oh my gosh, so much laundry. That's people are like, oh, I don't have any skills I can use to save cats. I'm like, can you do laundry? Because you can come to my house and do my laundry. We do laundry every single day at our house. And that's a skill that you can just go to your local shelter and do laundry. They'll love you. It's a big deal, yeah. How much time do we have left? I don't know. Can anybody give me a time? 7:47. Oh, okay, let's take some questions then. Is that good? Or is there any other burning question that you wanted to ask me?
There might be. I think you answered the first couple.
Okay, well, let's take some questions from the crowd. And so before we take questions, I just want to make sure that I say, please don't ask a question that is so very specific to you that other people will not find the answer interesting. What I mean by that is, like, I have a foster kitten at home and they're going through this extremely specific thing, and I'm going to tell you all about this very specific case that doesn't apply to other people here. If you have a question that's a little more general, maybe, about fostering or about the book or about something that you've seen online, please feel free to ask those types of questions. You can direct questions to me or to Chris. And also, if you're feeling nervous to ask a question, because I know that it's scary to talk in front of people, just know everyone's nervous to talk in front of people. I get nervous every time I talk in front of people. Chris, we're all nervous. So it's cool, and we all love, everyone in this room is pure love for this movement, this community. So if you have something you want to say, please use this as an opportunity to be brave and say it. So yeah, please, and you can stand up and we're going to just have you project as loud as you can.
I'll try as best as I can.
You got this.
Would you ever rescue a senior cat?
That's a question, would I ever rescue a senior cat? I really am so focused on my specific skill set that I have and my specific passion I have for neonates. The interesting thing is that and maybe I'm gonna get a bunch of what from this audience. I am more of a neonate person than I am a cat person. So I love working with neonates of all different species. I'm much more likely to rescue a neonatal armadillo, I think, than I am to rescue a senior cat. And the only reason for that is that this is a skill set that I have that is really specialized that I want to be able to give to, I think, the little piglet, Joshua that I helped. That is oh, Joshua. Hey, you guys live in San Diego. Has anybody gone and visited Joshy?
Not yet.
Yeah, a couple people. Okay, well, if you love Joshy, he lives here too. You can visit him and you can support Farm Animal Refuge, which is a really cool organization that everybody here should know about. Farm Animal Refuge. Look them up. But I will rescue anybody who needs to be rescued when it is in my face and I have no other choice. I find dogs outside and I'm okay, fine, we'll take them inside. But I'm not going out of my way to look for a dog, except for recently when I did go out of my way to look for a dog. So who knows, anything's possible. But my focus really is the orphan neonates are my big passion. But yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah.
So I live in an area where there's a lot of people let their cats out. How can you tell the difference between a stray and someone who owns a cat? Because that's a big problem in my area, and I want to start TNR.
That is an awesome question, and I'm so glad that you want to start doing TNR. So when you, and maybe Chris can weigh in on this too, because he does a ton of TNR. So my best advice for anyone who's planning on trapping is to talk to the neighborhood. I know you probably don't want to. I don't want to either.
Well, my neighborhood, it's I live in a house, and all the cats come by, and I've had a few litters of kittens born by my house, and it's pretty much just a stopping point, where cats travel in between my neighborhood.
Sure. So the first thing is you can learn a lot by talking to people. So talk to the people in your neighborhood, and and I'll give you an example because people never know what to do. So if I'm gonna go out and talk to people, I will knock on a door, they answer the door, and I say, hey, my name's Hannah, super friendly, always professional, friendly. My name's Hannah. I am an advocate for cats. I saw there's a lot of cats in this neighborhood. Can you just tell me what you know about that? And then, oh my gosh, usually that's enough to get just they tell you everything. And they're oh, well, who you really need to talk to is Joe down there. Oh, okay, I'll go talk to Joe. And then, hey, are you Joe? I was just talking to your neighbor Steve, and I work with cats, and we'd like to know more about the cats. They will tell you all. People know the cats in their neighborhood typically. So they'll go, oh, they've got this orange one, and he's Barbara's cat, but the other ones, they're not anybody's cats. Well, sometimes they're in my living room and I feed them, but they're not my cats. And you're okay, whatever. So you learn a lot by talking to people, and it's a really good opportunity to flex your person skills. TNR is all people skills. It's very little to do with working with cats. It's a lot more to do with I think, working with people and managing personalities of people who love the cats and don't want them to stay spayed, hate the cats and don't want them, to be returned, people are confused about the cats, don't really understand what's going on, and your job is to go in there and calmly manage the personalities and get the right thing done. Now, my other piece of advice is if there's a cat going through your property and they're having babies on your property, I don't care if they're somebody's pet cat or not. You get that cat trapped and you get that cat spayed. That is your right, and that is the right thing to do. And what do you have to add to that?
I think you nailed every bullet point. I think the talking points in the book about TNR offer a really kind and diplomatic way to talk about what your efforts look like, and using those talking points to do some community outreach would be the first couple of steps. But I think the way that it's laid out in Hannah's book are perfect.
Thanks, dude. That means I want somebody coming from you.
Well, I used to be a little bit less diplomatic. I have found in working with you that just keeping an even tone and doing what's right for the right reason, rather than I'm just gonna drop everything. Those two yield different results. And
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting because the truth is like the face I put out and then like what's going on inside of me can be very different. So I might be talking to a neighbor who I'm thinking inside like, oh my God, what is your problem? I cannot wait to go home and tell Andrew about this psycho that I just talked to. But externally I'm like, oh, that's great that you have all of it. And they live inside your house too. That's great. You seem like you love cats. I'd love to give you some food and get them sterilized. Can I come inside and drop this food off in your house? Oh my gosh, why do you have so many cats? Like, you know, it's acting. It's acting.
that approach gets all the cats fixed.
It does. Yeah.
The approach that carries a lot of judgments and talking down to someone will get maybe one or two before they don't invite you back onto their property.
Yeah. Kindness goes a long way. Even if in your heart you're not feeling kind. Just pretend.
Just smile.
Okay, do we have another question? No other questions? I know y'all have questions. Yeah.
Is TNR free, or like how do you?
So, here in San Diego, we have an amazing resource called the Feral Cat Coalition. Are you in San Diego? Where do you live?
Hour east of LA, San Bernardino.
You would know about this then.
Yes, so there's actually something going on in San Bernardino County this week. They're doing free spay neuter for cats in a carrier, in a trap. I know there's been a lot of kind of shifting between the San Bernardino shelter and the divorce shelter, but I think moving forward, the divorce shelter will have monthly specials on TNR where they won't be charging, and those will include vaccines and flea medication.
Yeah, but in general, it varies depending on where you live. So in some areas you might find that it's $20. In some areas you might find that it's free. In some areas you don't need an appointment. In some areas you do. Here in San Diego, Feral Cat Coalition is an amazing resource, and it is free, right? It's amazing. So therefore you should donate to Feral Cat Coalition because it's not actually free for them to do the work, but they offer those services for free thanks to donations. And what an amazing gift that we have here. You do have to make an appointment though. So don't just bring them a bunch of cats. Yeah, we have a question right here.
How many kittens do you have at home?
How many kittens do I have at home? Well, it varies depending on the day. We'll usually have anywhere from like 5 to 12 kittens. Sometimes when people ask me that, I think they want me to say, I have 100 kittens in my house. And the truth is, if I had 100 kittens in my house, I wouldn't be very good at taking care of those kittens. So it's important for you to kind of know how many you can take care of and do it really well. I've been traveling this week, so we only have the 5 kittens that we have at home right now. And they're doing great. And actually, Chris is the one who got me those babies, and they were not doing great when you got them.
No, they weren't.
They weren't. We were just back there, like, looking over the photos, and it was just horrible.
But as of about a week ago, there's only 1 cat left in that colony that needs to be sterilized.
Because Chris is doing TNR there. And that's what it's all about. I mean, like, literally that is what it's all about, is like, what can you do? Okay, well, maybe you can't foster the kittens, but I'll take the kittens, but I'm not there to TNR. Can you TNR? He went there and was like, guess what? They were born under a wheelbarrow, the hummingbird kittens that I have right now. And he's been over there trapping in his free time. What a guy. What a guy. So yeah, so we have the 5 kittens right now, and they are doing great, miraculously, because they were really a mess. They're the biggest hot mess that I've had since living here. But they're doing great, and they're so beautiful, and they all need homes. So if you're interested in some cute little fluffy kittens, you can go on orphankittenclub.org and you can apply for them. But let's take maybe, how much time do we have?
Can we do like one more?
One more question. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. Let's do both because I feel bad. We'll do both.
I work a normal 9-to-5 job, but I would really love to like work with and engage with orphan kittens, like the really little ones. Do you have any advice on that?
I do. Well, so first of all, I'm going to out Jackie here. Do you live in San Diego?
I do.
Okay, so there's the San Diego Humane Society nursery, which is amazing. It is my favorite kitten nursery, like literally in the country, and it's here. And it's run by Jackie, who's an amazing person. Yay, Jackie! volunteer opportunities, but maybe you do. You do?
We do, or you can foster a queen.
Or, okay, so you can either volunteer on site, or the other trick to doing neonatal kittens, if you are working 9 to 5 and can't take them with you, is to do a mom and her babies, because it's all of the fun and just silliness of taking care of little babies, but none of the work. Because mom does all the work, and that's pretty cool. She even eats their poop, so you don't even have to clean their butts. She does it for you. You just feed mom and then enjoy the kitten. The other thing that's cool about doing a mom and babies is mom is a great teacher. I like to foster, I don't do a lot of moms and babies, but when I do, I always learn something new just by observing her, because no human can care for kittens like a mom cat can. Actually, the last mom cat I did, we got her and she immediately went into labor. So we had this cat that went into labor in our house, literally hours after we met this cat. And I was trying to help her. I was like, okay, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And she was looking at me oh my gosh, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. And then I'd be trying to show the kittens were born, and I was like, here, you lick them. And she's like, I know what I'm doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course you do. Why do I think I try to be a mom cat. I'm never gonna be a real mom cat. So moms and babies is awesome, because you feed mom feeds babies, you go to work, you come home, you just look at them and go, does everybody look okay? Maybe you weigh them sometimes, is everybody gaining weight? Nobody looks sick? Great, awesome. Mom, you need more food, you good? That's it, and then they grow up into these pudgy, milk-fed kittens, and it's awesome. So moms and babies are another good option. But definitely talk to San Diego Humane, because I know they have lots of moms and babies there. They got a mom, wait, can I tell the story of the mom? Oh my gosh. Jackie told me the craziest story a week ago that I've been telling everyone. They got a mom with 11 babies. And wait for this.
I saw her.
Wait, did you hear the story though? Okay. So mom cats usually have they either have 8 or 10 nipples. Usually 10 nipples. This mom cat has 11 nipples! She's got 11 babies, and her body was just 11 babies, sure, I'll just grow another nipple. She sent me the picture, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is the Mother's Day story of the century. You guys don't share that story on Mother's Day next year,
We shared it on
you already shared it. That is the coolest story. I was like, no way. Moms are the coolest. It's so awesome. Okay, and then the one last question. Yes, please.
Back to adopting or release. What do you do if there's a community that doesn't really want the cats back? In a case in Mission Bay, I know they were very concerned out of the jetty. They did the whole thing, but they were a lot of the bird watchers were very upset because the cats were eating the birds.
Sure, great question. So how do you deal with people, when you're doing TNR, how do you deal with people who don't want the cats returned? Well, you return the cats, because the cats live there, and that's where they're from. And if you did not sterilize those cats, they would be producing more and more cats for years to come, unbelievable numbers of cats. And so the thing that's important for anybody who doesn't like cats being there to understand is, one, the thing that a lot of people complain about with cats outside is mating behaviors. They don't like the behaviors of cats when they're mating. So the cats are spraying the side of my house, or they're yowling in my yard, or fighting my cat through the window. All of these various behaviors that, of course, are unpleasant if you're a homeowner. But those things either are completely eliminated or are decreased greatly through sterilization. So you find that the cats that are sterilized make much better neighbors. In terms of people who are concerned about predation, to me, it's such a non-issue, it's insane. Of course, these cats are predator species, so yes, they are predators and they live outside. They're going to occasionally kill other animals. But the solution to that is certainly not letting them continue to make more and more and more and more tiny predators who are, out there doing the same thing. And so predator return is such a gift to all animals, to all people, whether you love cats, hate cats. This is something that I think everybody can agree on. And do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think that.
I love TNR, and that's where we'll end this part.
Thank you. just thank you for putting together this book, because it's going to take away this feeling of isolation that everybody inevitably goes through. It's almost hard for me to explain it, but people will go on to read this book from critical care for neonates to just jumping into action with stories like Doug. You've created a platform with a base set of tools that is going to navigate or help people navigate through any situation. So many lives are going to be impacted. So many are going to be saved from the rescue community. We all thank you for putting this out. It's clear you put so much of your heart and life into this, but this is the golden playbook that we've all been waiting for so long. So thank you.
Let's give another really good round of applause.